Cabinet met this week, yesterday, to be precise, the 14th of January 2015. And coming out of that cabinet meeting, the head of the Presidential Secretariat and Secretary to the Cabinet, Dr. Roger Luncheon, will bring you highlights on a number of matters Cabinet wish to bring to the public's attention through you, the media, after which we will entertain questions on Dr. Luncheon's opening statement. And I rather suspect we'll have enough time, or some bit of time just after this opening questions and his opening presentation to entertain other questions. I'll hand you over to Dr. Roger Luncheon.
Thank you, Kwame, and good morning again, ladies and gentlemen of the media. As Kwame pointed out, Cabinet met on Wednesday, the 14th, and arising from that Cabinet meeting, these are the matters I would be bringing to yours and the public's attention. Sanctions and talks of sanctions. Presidential visit to India. The Walter Rodney COI update, and then snippets, diplomatic roundup. Allow me to start with sanctions and talks of sanctions. There must be something about leaving Guyana that encourages diplomats, Western diplomats, heads of mission, to engage in final feats of folly. The High Commissioner from the UK, Mr. Eyre, is about to leave Guyana. He's leaving Guyana soon. High Commissioner Eyre has served in Guyana for about 3 years. However, just like another departed Western diplomat and head of mission, the High Commissioner has opted to use the opportunity of his parting to be unusually remembered by the government of Guyana. Like his fellow departed head of mission, the High Commissioner spoke to the Guyanese government through the medium of press conference, through the press. He attempted to portray the recent prorogation of the 10th Parliament of Guyana as an act by a government of Guyana that was worthy of sanctions, Commonwealth sanctions, to be precise. He went further. He unveiled threats of the withdrawal of developmental aid to Guyana. High Commissioner Eyre is terribly, dishonorable, knowingly misdepicting prorogation in Guyana as a constitutional crime severe enough to utter that S-word, sanctions, that is so bandied around today in the international discourses. Sinisterly and conspiratorially, he revealed the EU and the UK's handiwork in the recent EU's dishonoring of its agreement with the government of Guyana on budget support. Folly, yes, but his attempts to damage Guyana's credibility and its economic prospects, considered by Cabinet to be unpardonable. The sentiment is he needs to be accorded the status of a pariah, and his departure eagerly awaited by the government of Guyana. President's visit to India, January the 5th to the 13th, 2015. Cabinet commended President Ramotar on those developments that arose during and subsequent to his recent visit to India from January the 5th to the 13th. The President had been invited to deliver the feature address at the annual Indian Diaspora event. The specific event, Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, and this is held, as I said, annually, and in this year, in 2015, was held in the state of Gujarat. The President met the Prime Minister and other high-ranking members of the Indian government. And both sides recognize the continued emphasis that was being paid to the development of ties, to the promotion of ties between the government and people of Guyana and India. The visit did concentrate on economic and developmental ties, and to that extent, Cabinet noted the support that the Indian government continued to offer Guyana with the line of credit instrument in promoting development and economic ties. In Gujarat and in Mumbai, the president and the delegation met segments of the Indian private sector, and indeed were able to obtain from the Indian government and those engagements commitments on the establishment, the construction of an IT center of excellence, commitment made for its soon establishment, and of course, as another strength of the Indian economy, renewable energy, and in this case, the recognition of Guyana and its agricultural potential, the use of gasification of rice husk as a provision of renewable energy. The Guyana delegation, which included members of Guyana private sector, also held their own consultations, their own meetings with their Indian colleagues as they sought to foster economic ties between Guyana and India. Cabinet recognized the need to follow up on these developments and accorded the responsibilities to the various sectors to ensure that those developments that arose from the President's visit to India were brought to bear and the intent fulfilled in the shortest possible time. Walter Rodney, COI. Cabinet was informed about the 2015 planned program of activities of the Commission. Noteworthy, the imminent, I think would be the right word, the imminent presence of the Commission and the recommencement of public hearings in January at the Law Library. This was a feature of the 2015 program. For January, 1 week of hearings, and then for the month of February and March, additional hearings planned. A satisfaction by the administration of the Commission was provided to Cabinet with the financial, the logistics, and other arrangements that would allow the TORs of the Dr. Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry to be implemented. Cabinet snippets, diplomatic roundup. Cabinet, on that meeting of the 14th of January 2015, granted its agrément for the appointment of His Excellency Ming Dal Young as the resident ambassador the non-resident, ambassador and extraordinaire and plenipotentiary of the Republic of Korea to the Republic of Guyana. Ambassador would be resident in Caracas. Additionally, Cabinet also granted its agreement at that same meeting for the appointment of His Excellency Rahimi Harum. And he would be the non-resident High Commissioner of Malaysia to the Republic of Guyana. And of course, the High Commissioner would be resident in Venezuela. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the matters I wanted to bring to your attention. As Kwame advised, questions on my opening statement, and at any point in time on other matters of concern to you, members of the media, would now be entertained. Thank you.
I saw Talisha's hand first.
Talisha from Toronto. Dr. Luncheon, I was just wondering what you think the motive of the High Commissioner was when he when he was attempting to damage credibility. And secondly, I don't know if I missed it, but could you say when the water at the COI, when exactly that will be implemented?
I don't have the second question first. I don't have that detail, but there are not many weeks left in January, so I would want to believe it couldn't be this week, so it more than likely would be by deduction next week. But this is just by deduction. I've not been so informed. Your question about the motive, it's difficult to explain, and it perhaps underpins the use of that phrase, feats of folly, because it don't make sense. It didn't make sense to the combined wisdom of cabinet members who, number one, felt that the concerns, if we can accord it that status, the concerns, such concerns, are usually shared bilaterally, and this resort to press conferences to speak to the government of Guyana has taken on proportions that need to be addressed, in essence, need to be condemned. It's totally unacceptable in the realm of international diplomacy. You have something of this nature for one government, and I'm assuming that this is, those utterances are those from the government of the UK, that the concerns of the government, the UK government, and can and ought to continue to be shared conventionally. I don't believe that the government of Guyana has been utterly silent about concerns of actions by the UK government, but they resort to the media and press conferences to transmit concerns about its diplomatic partner is, of course, not acceptable in this modern world. Apart from that, I think it is irksome. It is indeed irksome for these Western diplomats to be running around the world with this word, this S word, sanctions. It seems to have assumed a very notable role in the diplomacy, in the soft or even the hard power of these states. And so we are, in essence, on a daily basis, exposed to sanctions and threat of sanctions and talk of sanctions. And the High Commissioner has brought it home to Guyana. I think the most dastardly act, though, is this threat of withdrawal and withholding of developmental aid. It hurts, not only because they have been instrumental in organizing, in contributing to developmental aid that Guyana has received over the years from external sources, but the issue of prorogation being elevated to some similarity with the Fijian experiences and being worthy of the imposition of sanctions and the withdrawal or threats of the withdrawal of the developmental assistance, developmental aid. I think that the people would say that is really taking this matter totally out of proportion.
Sherry, you want to?
Mr. Luncheon, in the statement, the High Commissioner said that he, in light of the fact that there are no talks, he sees no reason for the continued prorogation, or he questions the continuation of the prorogation. In light of this, do you see him as questioning the fact that the Parliament has been prorogued, or criticizing the fact that it has gone on so long without a particular reason for the continuation?
6 months.
Well, you know, I have, and Mary can repeat what my cabinet colleagues took pains to point out, not in the throes of the High Commissioner's statement, but even before. That number one, this is a constitutional instrument. It is patently captured in the Constitution, its applicability, and hence its constitutionality. And the concerns about its duration and such like, whilst entertainable, could hardly justify the move from concerns to actual statements and threats and undertakings that the High Commissioner has put on the table. I am certain that if we were to indeed beg the question and justify what the High Commissioner seems, the road he seems to be going down, what is to prevent, let us say, the honorable leader of the opposition to say, well, if the High Commissioner from England can indeed impose or threaten to have sanctions imposed by the Commonwealth, I am the leader of the opposition, no, I'm going to have street protests, I'm going to, on the same basis. Fortunately, wiser head prevails in the body politic as opposed to the diplomatic corps, that section of the diplomatic corps.
Adam, and then...
Sir, the British High Commissioner did say that he had conveyed his concerns to the government privately as well as publicly by way of press statements, and he got no results. Is it true that he actually made his concerns known to the government?
What do you mean, or maybe not you, what did the High Commissioner mean by making his concerns known? If the High Commissioner said that he has spoken, or the FCO, the Foreign Commonwealth Office of the UK, been engaging the Commonwealth on sanctions against Guyana, if the UK government is indeed party to this conviction that there is some parallel between prorogation and the Fijian experience, is that what he's saying he conveyed? Because if he did, he must have been speaking to some other government, not this one. I don't have any recollection that such sentiments were conveyed. He, I'm certain, like many others who have come out in the public and, of course, privately on the issue of prorogation. And that is a recorded fact. This linkage that is the subject of our objections, our forthright objections on these other interventions because of prorogation, the linkages, those are the ones that are offensive, deeply offensive. And to try to justify it by saying, I brought these to the attention of the administration and I got no response, ergo, this is my parting shot. It indeed justifies our contention of how unpardonable has been his actions.
Dr. Luncheon, the attacks that Finance and the Commission has brought up, have you given an account of the amount of money spent so far?
I don't have that information, but there's a particular reason why the HPS mentioned at the final statement, sentence of my opening statement on this matter, the satisfaction of the administration of the Commission. 3 areas. I said, 1, financial, 2, logistics, and 3, the administration. I don't believe that the talks of drying up can be in any way sustained in the presence of the satisfaction that has been conveyed to Cabinet about those arrangements, financial and otherwise. So I would dispense with those talks and say they're idle and they are not worthy of any serious consideration.
Sir, based on your statements, the Cabinet focused a whole lot on what the High Commissioner would have said at the press conference. But did the Cabinet at all examine the statement coming from the UK Foreign Minister, Toby Stelton, which came 3 days before the High Commissioner was conference and was looking forward to the British government over their concerns for London.
You have a mistaken impression of what this government is about. The administration prorogued Parliament, and the administration has clearly identified subsequently that this is a prelude to general and regional elections. All comments have to be understood in that context. I can't help, and we don't have any pretenses of being willing to help to explain our actions to anyone, whether domestically or externally. We have taken to the body politic, and we have said to the Guyanese, this is why we prorogued, this is what we set out to do. Our failure to have it done, this is what conclusion that we have arrived. And this is a commitment that has been made. We're going to have elections, and we're going to have elections soon. Now, I don't see what clarity the UK government can offer unless they want to come and set the date of the elections. I don't know if that is what you're speaking of in terms of the foreign ministers. Notice 3 days ago to presumably the public, because I am unaware that the foreign minister wrote the president and indicated that they had additional reservations from the ones that were made known to us historically from the time of the prorogation by the diplomats, and for which we are clearly of the opinion subsequent steps, subsequent indications are provided clear evidence of what our intentions are. There's no, I can't believe this allusion to Fijian experience as though we have sought to hijack political and parliamentary democracy. It's absurd, totally absurd.
Oh, stop right there. I am moving off of that subject. Yes, presumably. Could you please?
Just carry on.
This is not your press conference.
I know.
Yes, go
He's
ahead.
entitled to a follow-up.
Adam, could you, with due respect, I'm the one who moderate this press conference, not any one of you.
Lead the moderator.
Okay? Yes. Go ahead, please.
The moderator.
Yes, indeed, this first important industrial event of 2015 attracted Cabinet's attention, both the sector and the Ministry of Labor. The Cabinet's concern essentially was whether there was some justification for the continued, we call it, industrial unrest. And that led Cabinet to try to gain an understanding of what were or what was the beef, what were the workers, what was the issue that caused them to be out on strike. And it's amazing. Sometime in the hoary past, 2010, 2011, a consultant made recommendations about the changes at the GGMC. 2010 or 2011. Unbelievably, it is the workers' contention. It is the reason we are told for them being out there that the implementation of the recommendations of the consultant was not being honored by the management of GGMC and essentially by the administration. This is, it seems, the basis for the continued industrial unrest. Now, one could quite understand the reactions of cabinet because I am certain that every conceivable sector in this government that has acquired consultancies on strategic development carry this amount of recommendations, and from the Hori past to even more recent times. And the notion that there can be an industrial unrest issue on the implementation of the recommendations, frankly speaking, is a bit difficult for the cabinet to contemplate, to swallow. The Ministry of Labor, in its intervention, we are advised, has sought to have the industrial unrest end so that even this unusual contention could be discussed. An extremely conventional approach. No one negotiates on the duress. Return to work, and as silly, as absurd as the issue is, let's discuss it. You want to implement the recommendations? Return to work, let's talk about it. Of course, the fact that the strike continues is an indication that the workers feel entrenched for whatever reason, that until such time as the recommendations are implemented, we are not returning to work. I can tell you, a position that is clearly unpalatable to the administration.